Good morning, everybody. We are in chapter 44, 50 chapters in Genesis. So we've got 7 more until the end. So we are reaching our conclusion of this book. And then we can decide where to go next. A short book. So let us jump in. If you remember, the family of Joseph has brought Benjamin back. Joseph threw this lavish banquet. Yeah.
I did some research. It was the brothers.
Yeah.
It's Genesis 35, 22. This is the brothers there.
Oh, the full list of brothers in Genesis 35? Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
And yeah, Reuben was the first, and Simeon was the second.
Reuben was the first, Simeon was the second. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I know we have been talking about that. Good research. We've got Benjamin back with the family. A lavish feast is thrown. The brothers are put into birth order. They're wondering what's going on. Benjamin is given more than all the other brothers at the meal. And then Joseph gives these instructions. He commanded the steward of his house, fill the men's sacks. Wait, we read this already. 145. Ooh, we're even closer to the end. So if you remember, they put the cup of divination in Benjamin's sack and send them on their way. And they say, what are you doing? You're stealing this cup. Whoever it's in was going to stay as my slave. They find it in Benjamin's sack, and Judah throws himself down and says, please, you're going to kill our father if you keep Benjamin. He's the only son of his mother that's left. Take me instead. Joseph reveals himself to his brothers. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, send everyone away from me. So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? But his brothers could not answer him, so dismayed were they at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come closer to me. And they came closer. He said, I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are 5 more years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh and lord of all his house and ruler over the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not delay. You shall settle in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children and your children's children, as well as your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. I will provide for you, since there are 5 more years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have will not come to poverty. And now your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my own mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father how greatly I am honored in Egypt and all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here. Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them, and after that his brothers talked with him. When the report was heard in Pharaoh's house, Joseph's brothers have come, Pharaoh and his servants were pleased. Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this, load your animals and go back to the land of Canaan. Take your father and your households and come to me, so that I may give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you may enjoy the fat of the land. You are further charged to say, do this, take wagons from the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come. Give no thought to your possessions, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours. The sons of Israel did so. Joseph gave them wagons according to the instruction of Pharaoh, and he gave them provisions for the journey. To each one of them he gave a set of garments. But to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 sets of garments. To his father he sent the following 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and provision for his father on the journey. Then he sent his brothers on their way, and as they were leaving, he said to them, "Do not quarrel along the way." So they went up out of Egypt and came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, and they told him, "Joseph is still alive. He is even ruler over all the land of Egypt." He was stunned. He could not believe them. But when they told him all the words of Joseph that he had said to them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. Israel said, "Enough. My son Joseph is still alive. I must go and see him before I die." All right. Joseph reveals himself finally to his brothers, and he is overcome with emotions. He weeps so loudly that even the Egyptians hear it. The suggestion being that the Israelites eat separately from the Egyptians. They're supposed to be in their own realm, but the emotions of the Israelites are so strong that these emotions are going to carry over, and the Egyptians are going to be privy to the private goings-ons of these Israelites. His brothers are dismayed at his presence. Why do you think they would have been dismayed? Are you going to tell on them? They already have shared that they feel overwhelming guilt. They've carried that with them throughout all these years. They don't know what to do with the fact that this brother that they thought was dead is still alive. Yeah.
And he's in power.
And he's in power. Oh my gosh, yeah. What could he do to them? But Joseph brings him in, and we have more God language than we've had in a lot of chapters. So Joseph tells them, in other translations, we have a more famous rendering, "What you intended for evil, God has planned for good." So this is, yeah, go ahead, Donna.
Isn't he just sort of like a side power to Pharaoh though? Doesn't Pharaoh give him some power so that he won't be an enemy, but not because he really wants to be in power?
Yeah, no, so what we're told is Joseph is basically given all the power as a representative of Pharaoh, that the only one with the signet ring, so he can make decrees on Pharaoh in Pharaoh's name. And we're told in the text he has the only person with more power is Pharaoh himself.
He wants to keep him in because he's getting more of the people that don't really or wouldn't have maybe adhered to what Pharaoh was telling them. These people are not necessarily going to ever follow Pharaoh.
Well, so Egypt at this point, because it has these storehouses of food. So Donna's question is, are there people involved in this story that necessarily wouldn't have listened to Pharaoh? So they are reliant on Egypt at this point for food. And so there's probably smaller communities that are going to become vassal states of Egypt as a result of needing food. And so the Egyptians hate the Israelites. The Israelites aren't significant enough to really have much feelings about the Egyptians the other way around. They don't have the power for Egypt to care what the Israelites feel about them. That makes sense. Yeah, Chris?
Could you back up a step? You said there was a different translation of a particular.
Yeah. So I'm assuming it's the NIV, and this is the NRSV, where it says, what verse would have been? Maybe it's a different chapter that he says it. Perhaps it's a different chapter because I don't see anything even remotely close, but the sentiment is, the line is, "What you intended for evil, God intended for good." So you thought you were doing something that was going to harm me, but God was behind the scenes the whole time. Yeah, go ahead, Shirley. Genesis 50:20. Okay, so we're not going to get to that verse yet. Perfect. Thank you.
And when we do, I think it would be interesting to hear from you which version you think is closer to you.
Oh, sure. Definitely. Let's do it. Yeah, we can go back to the Hebrew with that verse. We have this theological reasoning from Joseph. God is the one orchestrating this. God is the one doing this. Joseph's been wrestling with these ups and downs of his journey. He's sold by his brothers into servitude. He gets to Potiphar's house. He goes to the top of Potiphar's house, but then he's thrown in jail. And in jail, he's able to interpret the dreams of the wine bearer and the baker and tells them to remember him, but they don't. And so he languishes for many years. And then he comes before Pharaoh. And then he's put at the top of Pharaoh's household. And so he's gone through this whole time wondering what's going on? Why is this happening? And for Joseph, he feels, okay, wait a minute. Looking back, this is God involved in this, orchestrating it, making it happen. There's a plan here. So even though you intended this for evil, God is working it for good. And this kind of gets into some of these concepts of does everything happen for a reason, which is not something that I ascribe to theologically. But there is a little shift of that perspective. Not necessarily that God is the one orchestrating it, but that God can work through evil circumstances. So for me, theologically, a way to understand what Joseph is wrestling with is what the brothers did to Joseph is evil, but nonetheless, in the midst of that, God can still be at work to use Joseph to bring life and goodness to the world, which is what's happening here. So that's how Joseph is understanding his story now. And he's trying to tell his brothers there's this moment of reconciliation. Joseph could take revenge. He's in power. Like we said, Barb, who knows what he could do to them? He could throw them all in prison, just keep Benjamin for himself. But there's this moment of reconciliation. We've had this intense family drama and dysfunction again and again, people deceiving each other, lying to each other, throwing each other under the bus. But here, Joseph takes this moment to forgive his brothers. And so there's a little bit of hope. We're no longer in this realm of paradise in the Garden of Eden. We've left. We see human sin and dysfunction. But even in the midst of that, can God be working something for good? And can humans take the initiative to reconcile and forgive? Joseph is giving an example that that is possible. Verse 16 onward, Pharaoh wants Joseph and his brothers to be well taken care of. If you are reading this passage as an Israelite who knows the full story of Israelite history, what are you thinking to yourself as you hear this story? Yeah, Toby?
Joseph seems to me to be a evolutionary leap in the Hebrew. He's the cosmopolitan, urban, mercantile. His brothers are like the farmers from the shtetl, or however you would say that. He's the urban Jew of Vienna, Prague, etc., etc. Ben, a couple of weeks ago, made a really great observation about Joseph had been colonized. Joseph, and at one point I was going, how do his brothers not recognize him? To me, Joseph's been entirely Egyptianized. He wears the signet ring. He undoubtedly has all the signifiers of the Egyptian elite, et cetera, et cetera. So naturally, they wouldn't recognize him.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, he's a paradigm figure, he's a real change.
Yeah. Toby's saying it seems Joseph here is this evolutionary leap from the farmers out in the field with the livestock, and here is this cosmopolitan who has been Egyptianized in a lot of ways, and so that's why his brothers don't recognize him. So there's this leap in terms of what it looks like to be Jewish or to be an Israelite, and that shift is significant. I think that's a really great observation.
He's the first savior too.
In some ways, he's the first savior. Interesting. Yeah, that's a really interesting observation that he is, by being able to build up these storehouses and provide food, being able to save the Israelites from destruction. Yeah, I'm gonna think about that one. That's good.
Well, I think that it's amazing that Pharaoh's excited that these people are going to come and he's going to be so kind to them. He obviously appreciates Joseph enough that he would do anything for Joseph's family. But we know that doesn't last. It's not going to last. And it's probably because these Jewish people can't offer anything to Egypt. They're not, and certainly not from Egypt's point of view.
Yeah. So Shirley says, it's interesting that the Pharaoh is being so kind to the Israelites. It's not going to last as long as they're not providing something. If they're not part of the economic system, if their labor is not benefiting Pharaoh, then they're no longer useful. And so that's a biblical theme. How does production relate to value, to human worth? And in the economics of Pharaoh, it's only how much you produce that determines your value. Yeah. There's a.
All these brothers shepherds, or were they some doing?
These brothers were shepherds, livestock carers.
There's something in the Bible earlier about that Pharaoh looked down upon them for being shepherds.
Pharaoh looked down upon them for being shepherds. Yeah, and we'll get that again in Exodus too. There's a theologian and biblical scholar that recently died named Walter Brueggemann, and he has a really good book, Sabbath as Resistance. And he uses a lot of these themes of the economics of Pharaoh, that Pharaoh and the world wants you to find your worth only in what you produce. And so being able to take Sabbath and rest is a form of resistance against the empire that defines you only by what you produce. So that's right. And so as the people are listening to this story, they're hearing, whoa, Pharaoh valued us. Because when we get to Exodus, it's going to say, a Pharaoh rose who knew not Joseph, who forgot what the Israelites gave to them, who forgot what Joseph did. And it's going to change how Pharaoh deals with the Israelites. And so the Israelites are going to hear this and say, well, there was a time when Pharaoh cared for us, when Pharaoh wanted us to thrive. And it was because of what Joseph did for him. So they go back. Any other comments on that?
Well,
Yeah, Donna.
there could have been several pharaohs during this time, couldn't there have been? Because he was there for like 30 years. Just because it's called Pharaoh, is it the same Pharaoh?
So the question is, just because it's called Pharaoh, is it the same Pharaoh? No, it's not. And so we're going to see a shift in pharaohs throughout the stories of the Israelites.
Did it change, or is it just that?
During Joseph's time. So it's hard to know exactly which Pharaoh it is. So there are theories dating Joseph's time all the way to Moses' time. So we don't know for sure which Pharaoh it is, but there are ideas.
But since Pharaohs kind of stayed within the family line as long as they could, and then they may have been overthrown by a different group.
Yeah.
They would have stayed loyal to whatever the decision had been of their father or uncle. Or
right. Shirley's saying that these pharaohs stay within a family line, and so they would have been following the same edicts as previous generations for sure. All right. So Joseph sends them on their way, giving Benjamin extra silver, extra garments, and he tells them, do not quarrel along the way. He has this memory of what these brothers are like. I need you to get to your father and bring him back. Don't sell another sibling into slavery while you're on your way. So they come back and they tell Jacob that Joseph is still alive and he can't believe it. How does his response differ from the last time the brothers returned from Egypt? If you remember.
Well, his spirit is revived.
His spirit is
He was
revived,
pretty
yeah.
Downcast the first time because he was potentially going to lose Benjamin.
Yeah, he didn't want to lose Benjamin. And his response was, I'm not going to Egypt to go save Simeon because it might risk Benjamin. Like, we're not doing this. Don't go back. And now he says, I've got to go. What are we doing? Why are we waiting? Let's go. And so that obviously he misses Joseph, understandably.
Jacob, do you think, that the father ever forgave his son?
What do you think? Sherry's question is, do you think that Jacob ever forgave the sons?
I hope so.
You hope so?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that they confess.
It doesn't say that they confessed either.
Well, that's
So we
another-
don't know if
Yeah.
that happened, and we don't know if later Joseph told him, or they had decided to confess or not.
Yeah.
The whole story, yeah.
As far as Jacob knows at this point, he was attacked by an animal and must have survived. All right, let's continue the story. When Israel set out on his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. God spoke to Israel in visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob, and he said, Here I am. Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you a great nation there. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I will bring you up again, and Joseph's own hand shall close your eyes. They set out from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried their father Jacob, their little ones, and their wives in the wagons that Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They also took their livestock and the goods that they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and they came into Egypt, Jacob and all his offspring, his sons and his sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, all his offspring he brought with him into Egypt. All right, let's pause here.
Is there any rhyme or reason to Jacob, Israel? Because God speaks to him as Jacob.
The question is there any rhyme or reason to the difference between Jacob and Israel? Yeah, I mean, as far as we know, there's the potential for certain verses to be coming from different authors, and it doesn't even have to be by chapter, it can be by verse, that these editors are taking different traditions and piecing them together. So ostensibly, the name change has happened. He should be Israel, God should be calling him Israel, but doesn't. And why? We don't know. Is God reminding Jacob of who he once was, that I have been with you since you were Jacob, and now I still am? I don't know.
It's just an author not wanting to repeat a word.
Yeah, sure. Is it an author not wanting to repeat a word, showing us that he is both the human Jacob and the father Israel of many nations? This is one and the same person, a reminder of that. So he comes to Beersheba, and this is a site we've been to multiple times through the course of Genesis. Abraham has been here. Isaac has been here. This is where a well was dug to stake it as part of the Israelite heritage. And so we have a few different reasons why Beersheba is named again. One, by repeating that they've returned to Beersheba. It's just a way for the Israelites, amongst all the different people groups trying to claim this land, to say, this is ours. This is a holy site for us. This is where we have been and we have seen visions of God. And it's also a way to say that there are within religious tradition these spaces where they're called thin places when you're studying religious practices, places where it feels as if people have deeper spiritual experiences, where the dividing line between heaven and earth is a little thinner and you can connect with the divine in deeper ways. Perhaps you all have these thin places where when you're there, you just kind of feel at peace. You feel connected to God. And so for the family of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, Beersheba is this thin place. It's where the visions of God come, and God comes and says, look, I am God. We'll go down to that footnote. The God. I'll need to look at the Hebrew to confirm whether that's most likely Yahweh. So I'm the God of your fathers. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt. So our readers are reading this text knowing the story of the Exodus. Why would God lead us to Egypt only for us to experience 400 years of captivity. And so this is the message of God. Do not be afraid to go down of Egypt, for while you are there, you will become a great nation, and I will be with you, and I will bring you up again. And so the Israelites will be asking themselves while they're in Egypt, has God forgotten about us? Why would God do this to us? And so this is a way to assure themselves, even in the midst of our captivity, God is with us. God has always been with us. God has led us here, and God will bring us back again. That God is with us in life and in death. Jacob, you will go down to Egypt, and there you will die. So it's a reminder to the Israelites that even in the midst of captivity and disaster and horrific situations, God is still there, and God will be with you to bring you up again. And it's also a reminder that this is a God who, even though the visions come at Beersheba, this is a God that is with the nomadic people. You're going down to Egypt. You don't have a home. Egypt is not your home. But this God can go beyond geographical boundaries into the land of Egypt and reside there as well. God is not limited by the boundaries of nations. God can be with this nomadic people no matter where they go. And so Jacob sets out and goes into the land of Egypt. And by telling us it's his sons and his sons' sons and his daughters and his sons' daughters, all his offspring, the entire promise of God. Remember, Genesis is about the promise that Abraham will be the father of a great nation. And we've watched Abraham struggle to believe the promise because it's delayed. Genesis 12, Genesis 15, 25 years of waiting until Isaac finally comes. And now we're being told that all of Jacob's offspring, the possibility that what God says is true, is going to be sent down to Egypt. And we know Egypt is the enemy. Can God carry out God's promises even when it looks bleak and grim? Genesis is not the full story. It's going to go into Exodus, and it's going to look even worse, just like the Joseph story with all of its ups and downs. Questions, comments? All right, we'll rush through this. These are the names of the Israelites, Jacob and his offspring who came to Egypt. Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, the children of Reuben, the children of Simeon, the son of a Canaanite woman, Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. So Israelites, thankfully, don't shy from the fact that their genealogies are not pure. This is an important part of the message of Jesus, as we've said. The children of Levi, the children of Judah. And we remember the story, but Er and Onan died in the land of Canaan. That was the story of them being unwilling to have children by their deceased brother's spouse. The children of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. The children of Issachar, the children of Zebulun. These are the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob in Padan Aram, together with his daughter Dinah. And all his sons and his daughters numbered 33. The children of Gad, the children of Asher, and their sister Sarah. The children of Beriah, these are the children of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to his daughter Leah, and these she bore to Jacob, 16 persons. And then the children of Jacob's wife, Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. To Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bore to him. So the descendants of Jacob, this colonized Joseph, are going to be half Egyptian. Moses himself raised in the Egyptian household, perhaps even Egyptian in his own bloodlines. And not only are they Egyptian, but from the daughter of a priest of Egyptian religion. The children of Benjamin, and these are the children of Rachel who were born to Jacob, 14 persons of all. Then we're going to get the children from Rachel's handmaiden. The children of Dan, the children of Naphtali, These are the children of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to his daughter Rachel, and these she bore to Jacob, 7 persons in all. All the persons belonging to Jacob who came into Egypt, who were his own offspring, not including the wives of his sons, because why would you count them? Were 66 persons in all. The children of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2. All the persons of the house of Jacob who came into Egypt were 70. It's an important number because it's part of showing how the promises of God come to pass. We're going to start with 70 coming into Egypt, and then Pharaoh is going to be upset because the Israelites multiply too great to be counted. Jacob settles in Goshen. Israel sent Judah ahead to Joseph to lead the way before him into Goshen. When they came to the land of Goshen, Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to meet his father Israel in Goshen. He presented himself to him, fell on his neck, and he wept on his neck a good while. Israel said to Joseph, I can die now, having seen for myself that you are still alive. Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh and will say to him, my brother and my father's household, who were in the land of Canaan, have come to me. The men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of livestock, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. When Pharaoh calls you and says, what is your occupation? You shall say, your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth, even until now, both we and our ancestors, in order that you may settle in the land of Goshen, because all shepherds are abhorrent to the Egyptians. All right, they want to carve out this land of Goshen, which is going to be on the outskirts. It's not going to be on the city center, and they want all of that land, and so they're strategizing, as the family does, to tell Pharaoh the truth. We're herders of livestock, so they might be given all the land of Goshen. Jacob's emotions are palpable here. I can die now. My life is complete, knowing that my son, my favorite son, is still alive. Questions or comments? Yeah, Chris?
So I'm thinking about why shepherds would be abhorrent to the Egyptians. Is it the pastoral versus the farmer that we've seen as far back as Cain and Abel? The Egyptians being more urban culture, farming?
Yeah. So the question is, why would shepherds have been abhorrent to the Egyptians? Is this going way back to the conflict of Cain and Abel, of the shepherd versus the farmer? Yeah, it would have been seen within those urban centers as something that's dirty, profane, rural, uneducated, hillbilly. Yeah, we can bring those into our modern terms. Definitely, that would have been the conflict there.
Suppose it has something to do with the fact that they not only raise the animals, they have to slay the animals and turn them into meat. I mean, I really don't understand why they would be less than a farmer.
Doesn't understand why they'd be less than farmers because they have to kill the animals. I mean, within Israelite culture, that would have been done by a separate person. So, also just the fact that they're nomadic, they have to go from place to place. They're not living in the city. Shirley?
I guess I would also liken it to the difference between the intellectual class and the working class, because shepherds weren't controlling anything. Basically, the sheep control them. They follow them, just protect them. Whereas farming is kind of a scientific activity, and you start to make things happen the way you want them to. And then Egyptians were using irrigation and all kinds of science in their lives. So these people were so foreign from that.
Yeah. So Shirley's saying a difference between an intellectual class and a working class, that in a lot of ways the shepherds don't even control the sheep. Sheep go where they want. The shepherd follows after them, protects them. And within Egypt, that would have already been very far along scientifically in terms of using irrigation practices, farming more of a scientific pursuit. Yeah, Melissa?
That also made them uncontrollable.
Mm.
And in the society as religiously and otherwise structured as Egypt was, having these uncontrollable people to be a threat, so they had to be othered and despised.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. Melissa saying the fact that they are nomadic and go where the livestock goes makes them uncontrollable. And so they would be othered as a people who, if they're not able to be controlled, then they have to be dehumanized and othered so that we can justify how we treat them. That's good. All right, anything else on chapter 46? All right, let's just read this little paragraph here in 47. So Joseph went and told Pharaoh, my father and my brothers with their flocks and herds are all that they possess have come from the land of Canaan. They are now in the land of Goshen. From among his brothers, he took 5 men and presented them to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to his brothers, what is your occupation? And they said to Pharaoh, your servants are shepherds, as our ancestors were. They said to Pharaoh, we have come to reside as aliens in the land, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, because the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Now we ask you, let your servants settle in the land of Goshen. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best part of the land. Let them live in Goshen. And if you know that they are capable men among them, put them in charge of my livestock. Then Joseph brought to his father Jacob and presented him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Jacob, how many are the years of your life? Jacob said to Pharaoh, the years of my earthly sojourn are 130. Few and hard have been the years of my life. They do not compare with the years of the life of my ancestors during their long sojourn. Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. Joseph settled his father and his brothers and granted them a holding in the land of Egypt, in the best part of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had instructed. And Joseph provided his father, his brother, and all his father's household with food, according to the number of their dependents. Relations are good. Pharaoh is sharing that he wants them to have the best of the land. Jacob and Joseph and the brothers believe this is good land because it's going to keep them away from the control and the purview of Pharaoh. Pharaoh's casting it as this is choice land for your livestock. But Pharaoh wants them to be put in charge of his livestock. There's still these good relations that are going to crumble very soon. Last comments before we break for the day?
Jacob had to find another way to complain.
Jacob had to find another way to complain. He's really annoying you, this guy. Let's go. I've had a really...
So much in his new attitude whatsoever. He just looks at the dark side of everything.
Yeah, he's been given so much, so many blessings, and still looks at the dark side of everything. My life has been hard. I haven't even lived as long as my ancestors.
Your son is alive, living over Egypt, saving all of his family.
Yeah, he's reason to be happy. Moses says his son is alive and in charge of Egypt, saving his family from famine. Hey, Chris?
If anyone else is interested in where the land of Goshen is, it's believed to have been located in the eastern Nile Delta of Lower Egypt, almost all the way up to Africa.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So Chris says the land of Goshen, east, upper Nile, and what's considered lower Egypt, which would be up near Alexandria. Thank you. Okay. So our major themes here: can God go with the Israelites into Egypt? Can God cross geographical boundaries? Can God's promises persist despite what is to come? And in the midst of the family dysfunction and drama, is there an opportunity for forgiveness and reconciliation? Are we going to have finally a model of healthy family relations? We will wrap up soon and try to answer those questions. Let's close in prayer for the day. God, thank you for another morning to study your word, to think about the ways you have been moving through history, both within the lives of these individuals that we read about here and in the lives of people within the greater world, within communities, within nations, within the entire human species. And so we ask that our eyes might be open to the ways in which you can continue through us to work good, even in the midst of terrible circumstances. We pray all this in Christ's name. Amen.